So we will just be going over what to do, when to do it, and what to expect basically as you start to get onboarded as new students here at CSU. So here are some of the topics that will be covered. For folks who are here for your student, what do they need to know to be prepared for orientation? What will happen while they're at orientation? What do they need to do to get prepared for fall start and this upcoming fall? And then what type of programs do we have that can support them along the way? So if you have not done yet, we have a couple of orientation dates. So everything starts with orientation. That's kind of our way that we onboard new students and really ensure that they get all the resources that they need and get prepared for the fall. So there's a variety of different dates that you can choose from. The list is here, and of course, as you can see, our first day of orientation is today. Woo! So we have some students on campus, but there are a ton of different dates to choose from, and we encourage you to come to an in-person one or a virtual one. Those are pretty limited, but being able to come on campus and to experience all of that is super helpful and kind of helps relieve some of those nerves of students who, haven't been to campus before or haven't stayed on campus yet. So here's a long list of orientations. Our in-person is on campus 2 days, and then our virtual is a 1 day, and it's a full day orientation, all online. So kind of the 3 main steps for orientation is get registered for an orientation date. I have all those dates listed on the slide before. Complete your orientation modules. So once you register for an orientation, you'll get sent modules that you'll need to complete. To again, just kind of be prepared, expect, the things that are going to be happening when you arrive on campus. And then attend orientation, of course, because all of it is the lead up to coming to orientation. So what are things that your student could be doing right now before their orientation? There's a couple of different things that can happen. There's a lot of different prep. There's a lot of different side work. And I know for students, they were probably like, oh, I'm out of school. And so I don't have to do any homework and I get a break. We love to give you homework here. So here are some things that you can do to keep you busy and to really keep you engaged with what's going to be happening as you start here at CSU. So these are kind of like the 3 big points that we want you to take away from it. One is checking your CSU email. Send in your official, and official cannot be unofficial, official transcripts and exam scores. And then 3, complete your math placement tool. And we'll go into further depth on all of those things. So one is setting up your CSU email. And this is important because once you become a student and you've made that decision to come to CSU, we have to start all communication through your CSU email. A lot of it has to do with like confidentiality, student confidentiality, your records and all those things. And so if you are using a personal email, you have received a lot of information from CSU through that lens. But as you confirm, deposit, and make all those other steps to, imply that you are coming here to CSU, we start channeling a lot of that communication to your CSU email so that we ensure that, one, your information is protected. We have a couple of like authentication factors that really ensure that those accounts don't get messed with, don't get hacked. Unfortunately, those are things that happen. And so we want to make sure that you're protected in general, and especially when you're communicating very personal information over that account. So if you have not set up your CSU email yet, here's a way to do it. You can go through like the admissions website, university email, and it'll give you kind of a walkthrough of basically how to set it up on certain like platforms. So if you go through like Google and you want to set it up through Google, if you go through Outlook, if you want to set it up on a Mac or a PC, it'll kind of give you the layout and like the steps of what you need to do and how to do it. But I would highly encourage setting that up sooner rather than later, because all of your information regarding classes, next steps, registration, any of that stuff is all going to be channeled through your CSU email. All right. And then let's talk a little bit about math, because y'all are entering engineering and we love math. So there's a couple of different things that we want to cover when it comes to math, and we want to make sure that in general, we build a relationship between your student and their comfortability when it comes to math. Some students have a very high comfortability with math, while others may have not gone to that point yet. And that's okay. We want to ensure that all students are open to having that conversation. So there are options for all students, no matter where you are in math right now, or the things that you've completed, or the things that you're working on. All students have a different path, a different journey. No journey at CSU is linear. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about completing a degree, and especially when it comes to the priority in math. So with CSU and the College of Engineering, every degree starts with Calculus 1 or Math 160. Now, there's a couple ways that we determine where students are in math, like where they place in it, through our math placement tool, which Macarena will talk about more. But ultimately, it's a way that we can see where students are through a series of tests or questions. And then we always want to encourage students to play it safe, take it prepared. These are pre-calculus topics. And so oftentimes these are topics that you have not seen since maybe 8th grade or freshman year of high school. So it's been a while. It's kind of in the back of your brain, and it's there, but it's a little rusty. So we gotta shine it off and make sure that it's all good to go. So when you get tested on those topics, you're able to kind of revisit those efficiently. We have a couple ways that we can support students when it comes to math, because we understand that this can be intimidating at times or overwhelming. So we have an Encourage Summer Math program, which again, Macarena will talk more about. And then we always encourage students who maybe have AP or IB credit to take the tool either way, just because those scores can take time before they come in. And that can become a little problematic if the scores don't come in until after you are set to register for your classes. And so we don't want to run into any of those hiccups along the way. So we just want to make sure that you get all of that situated beforehand, before your orientation date. And then I will let my friends chime in on this piece.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Macarena Ling. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm the assessment and enrichment coordinator here in the Engineering Success Center in the College of Engineering. And I just, I'm going to give you some information that you might not be able to see because most of you are not students, but kind of what goes on behind the scenes or what your student is dealing with as they go through the math placement process. So the math placement process is done through the Department of Mathematics. So pretty much any student that comes to CSU will use this same tool. But what we want in the College of Engineering is we're trying to get to that Calculus 1 placement. As Bella said, the curriculum starts with Calculus 1 or Math 160. So here's the QR code that takes you to the math placement site. They have another tool that's not the math placement tool to help you determine if you should take the math placement tool. So going there, you can see like it says, do I need math placement there? So you would go through the series of questions, and maybe you do have a situation where you say, I have AP credit, or I think I'm going to have AP credit, or I took a concurrent enrollment class, or I have this exam that I took. So that'll help you kind of gauge if you should take the math placement tool to begin with. As Bella said, we encourage all students to take the math placement tool earlier in case you do come to orientation. And it's time to register for classes, and you're like, wait, I'm waiting for my score, and also the score might not be what you thought it was. So the math placement tool is encouraged for all students, and early in the onboarding process, so that you can get that result. And if it's not the result that we were aiming for, we have some support as well. So again, this is still the math department site. Can you go back one, Bella? On the left there, the more information button has a lot of great information, like do I need math placement to begin with? How should I prepare for the tool? So a lot of preparation materials directly from the math department. As Bella said, these classes might have been a few years ago. Maybe the teacher in high school taught it differently than what we're looking for at CSU. So it's really important to prepare. It is a series of questions, about 50 questions, and the student has about 2 hours. So it's not, it's no simple feat to get that placement. If you have any questions about extended time or accommodations for your student, there's more questions that would be below the how should I prepare. So a lot of information there about what the tool is, when do I take it? As Bella said, it's unproctored the first time, so a student just logs in and takes it. The second time it's proctored, and that can be proctored virtually as well. So your students still wouldn't have to come to campus to do it. Okay, now we can go to the next slide, please, Bella. So now I wanted to show you what your student would see once they logged into their account. So this is behind a login with their CSU ID. And it's the math plan. So for me, you can see I'm logged in as me, and I said I was interested in majoring in mechanical engineering, and it lays out a math plan. So it says prior to my first semester, I should have satisfied all the prerequisites for pre-calculus. So that's about 3 areas of math: algebra, trigonometry, and functions. So then I'm proficient in those, and I'm ready to start my first semester in Math 160. And then you can see it kind of goes along, like next I'll take Calculus 2, and then I'll take differential equations. So that's the math plan, just as an example for mechanical engineering. So I look at my math plan, and then step 2, I do need to take the math placement tool. So I study, I review the materials, practice questions, and then I go on to take the tool. And then we can go to the next slide. So let's say I took the tool and I placed into algebra or trigonometry or functions. I didn't quite get that Math 160 placement. Every incoming engineering student is invited to join the Encourage Engineering Math program. This is a no-cost program where we study virtually through a Canvas course, so kind of like an online course where all the materials are there. And we study for 3 weeks. We study those pre-calculus topics, and then we take our second attempt at the tool. So now we've seen the tool once. We know what the math department wants from us. We study. All the content is available at any time. It's pre-recorded videos. There's progress checks. And there will also be live office hours every day, which are held by College of Engineering PhD candidates. So those students have been through the math plan. They know what is coming up in CSU, and it's just kind of like more community building. It's only for engineering students. It's live interaction if a student wants it. I know a concern is that maybe your student works or there's other responsibilities. So this can really be joined at any time. If they want to watch the Zoom recordings later, those will be uploaded. The session starts June 10th, and this is the QR code to get to the Encourage site if someone would like to sign up. If anyone is worried about you're out of town, your student's doing something June 10th through the 28th, there will be another session later in July. It's nice to get in earlier though, because if we do get that Calculus 1 placement, we want to be able to register for that Calculus 1 course earlier on in the summer before they might get full. So I'm going to put in the chat the email address where you can send any questions about math, the Encourage program, and also the website to the link to the website in case you missed the QR code. And just, I'm happy to answer any questions, but if you have any questions about like personal placement, it does need to be your student communicating with me from that CSU email that Bella talked about. But any general questions, I'm happy to answer for parents and caregivers, and I'll put that in the chat. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Sweet, thank you. Betty, is there anything that you would like to add about math?
Yes, there is just 1 or 2 things that I'd like to add. The first being that I just want to normalize that it's very common for students to need to take the math placement tool twice. You know, I don't know that we do an amazing job at communicating, especially to engineering students, how important that math placement tool is. The second thing I wanted to emphasize is what Bella had mentioned earlier, which is if you're waiting on those AP or IB test scores to come in, I know if you just took the exam, I don't think test scores get released until early July. Go ahead and take the math placement tool. Do not wait to get your test scores. When you attend orientation, we will have you sign up for the classes that you're able to sign up for in that moment. So we don't say, well, let's wait until your test scores come in, or we also aren't able to say, hey, you feel really confident in your test scores, or like you think you did really well, so we'll place you in Math 160. We're only able to place you in the class that we have information about, if that makes sense. So those test scores, things like that. And it can also impact other classes such as your science. So don't wait, prepare and take that test. There was one other thing. As Bella also mentioned, it is totally normal for folks to start in pre-calculus as well. If you do start in pre-calculus, we do encourage you to work with your advisor to create a plan for graduation for, those 4 or 5 years, which may include a summer class as well. Just because, as Bella mentioned, our curriculum starts with Math 160. So again, it's totally possible to be a successful engineer starting in pre-calculus. We recommend, you're going to be looking at a summer class if you start in pre-calculus. And for some folks, that's totally fine, but just something to be aware of in terms of balancing what are your options.
Ooh, okay. And then again, if you have questions, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat if it's relevant to this right now. And we can, circle back to them at the end. Well, cool. All right, my friends. And then more to-dos, because it just doesn't stop at 1, 2, or 3. We have more to bring on. But this is for our directed self-placement survey. So at CSU, every student is required to complete a Composition 150 course. This is through their AUCC credit. So AUCC stands for All University Core Curriculum Credits. This is basically the general credits that every student has to complete no matter what their major is. So you'll need to complete a arts and humanities course. You'll need to complete a composition course. And this is where this starts. So there's a couple of ways to determine whether or not you need to take the survey. At this point, CSU no longer requires SAT or ACT scores, but some folks do take it just depending on the other maybe schools they're applying to or whatever it may be. But if you did not take that, you can also take the survey, and that will help you determine what composition course you should be in for your first year or as you become a student here. So what you would do is just basically go into your RAM web, see the directed self-placement survey option, hit that survey, take it. It's going to be around 10 minutes or so. It's not something to really be stressed about. It's just where's your comfortability when it comes to composition and writing. And then that is how you will be placed. Or if you follow this chart here, it also helps you understand, like if you took the ACT, where does that kind of help place you? If you took the SAT, where does that place you? If you have any AP, IB, any of that enrollment or credits coming in, where does that lie? But it's kind of relevant to where the math placement tool is, where if you don't really have those scores yet, it is just best to take the survey just so you know, and then it opens up that opportunity to potentially register for that class when you come to CSU. And then some more to-dos, in case, we didn't emphasize it enough. Sending your transcripts, pretty please. Transcripts can take up to 30 days to be evaluated by our Office of the Registrars. They get a lot of transcripts in, and so it takes time to get all of that evaluated, put into the system, put into your record, and then have it reflect on your degree progress audit report. And so we want to give them enough time and give you enough time as well to do it. So as soon as you get your transcripts, whether that's from your high school, your community college, if you were in dual enrollment, you will need to send both of those transcripts. Your high school will not send them for you. So make sure you just send them all to CSU, all to the Office of the Registrars, and then they can get that situated. Let's say you send in your transcripts and your orientation is next week. It's not going to be enough time for them to be evaluated, and that's okay. You can also bring an unofficial transcript, like a copy of an unofficial transcript, so you can work with your academic advisor and folks during orientation, and see if there's any credit, or just to ensure that you're not overlapping credit that you'll already be bringing in. So it's just nice to have that there so that you're not like double dipping or repeating anything, or anything like that. Same thing with your AP and IB credit. Make sure you send all those things in as soon as possible. If you did not select to send them in as soon as the scores get released, you can always contact College Board and have them send those scores over to CSU. And if you're worried about, maybe you didn't test as well on something, or you're not feeling super confident on it, you can just send the scores anyways. We're only going to take the things that help you. We're not going to let the other scores inhibit you from doing another class. So if you got like a 2 on a test, that is okay. It's just going to fall to the bottom of your credit and say like, it's not really applicable, but at least we know now that that credit is not going to be applied to your degree right now, and that you may need to take the credit in a different way at CSU. So just a couple of things to get kind of checked off the list and the things that you can do at home. All right. So now we got all the things done, checked all those things off the list, and it is orientation day. It's day one. We're on campus. It is a lot of energy, I will say, especially when it comes to that first welcoming day. So this is kind of a layout of what it will look like. I won't provide too many details just because every day can look a little different. Just kind of depends on the group. So we welcome, learn, and prepare. You will be in a group of 20 to 25 students, and you will be with your orientation leader. These are a great group of folks who are current students on campus, and they want to support you. They want to ensure that this experience that you have is a positive one. And so they are truly a resource for you as you are here on campus with them. So always feel free to talk with your orientation leader. If you get lost on campus, find someone who is either in a bright shirt or in CSU attire. They will be pretty easy to identify. And get a hold of them and say, hey, I'm missing this, or I need to talk to someone, and they're going to be that outlet for you to really find the resources that you need. You will also take a campus tour. Campus is pretty big and it can be a little overwhelming. So we want to make sure that you're kind of comfortable with it. We won't take you too far into the weeds of what campus has to offer, but just kind of give you a general overview. You may have taken a campus tour before, but it's always nice to get a refresher. And you may have come in the winter where it was snowy and cold. It is a lot warmer now. It's significantly warmer. It's sunny. It's green. It's a beautiful campus. And then you will get an intro into the college with academic advisors, which is really great because then you get to meet your people who will be helping support you, and kind of get to connect those names to faces and everything like that, and the folks who you'll likely be seeing the next day for orientation day 2. All right. So it's day 2, but day 2 is a little different because we got kind of the fun piece out. We've welcomed you. You maybe are a little tired because it's a lot to take in. But there is kind of the light at the end of the tunnel with day 2. So day 2 is about registration. It's getting you registered for your classes and really ensuring that you have those pieces completed so that when you come in on orientation day 2, you are able to just hit submit your classes, get your schedule, and then be able to come back in the fall and attend your courses. So here's some recommendations of really ensuring kind of the flow of your registration and creating some efficiency with all of it. So I kind of mentioned this with our CSU email and the importance of using your CSU email. And so now with CSU, and if you ever need to log into Banner to register for your courses, you have to go through our Duo 2-factor authentication process, which can be a little tedious and sometimes annoying, but that's okay because again, we want to stay protected and your information matters, and we want to hold that confidentiality. And so this is the way that we ensure that this is happening. And so you will need to set up your account with Duo. I will send you the links on how to do that. There's a little picture kind of down below here that shows you how to do your setup, what you need, how to make sure that it's all set up, just because you will be using our registration portal, which requires this. So it's just, less time that you have to spend during registration, and that you can just have it all set up for you, and then you just go in and you start registering for your classes. So Duo is one of them. And then completing all your red X's. These fun little red X's will show up every year. It's not just the one time during orientation. We will ask you again and again your address and updated email or emergency contacts, or health insurance or whatever it may be. But this is basically a way for CSU to ensure that all of your information is up to date. And so it's kind of a way to require students to do it every year because that is how you register your registration link, or access your registration link, apologies. So it's really great because you get to go through, you click all your red X's, and once your red X is complete, it goes away. And then the only red X that will be left is your advising code. So again, you can do this from your home, go into your RamWeb, be able to click through some of these red X's, probably talk with folks, your parents or caregivers and say, is this health insurance information correct? Are these emergency contacts correct? Like really ensuring that everything is up to date and it's accurate, because this is how CSU will either contact you or like work with you or whatever it may be. And then the only red X that gets left is your advising code. And the only way that you get your advising code is coming to orientation or meeting with an academic advisor and going through orientation. So, all right. And then we got all those steps done. Woo! And now it's time to register for classes. This is like the final hurrah of everything. So what you will do is you'll meet with your orientation leader in the morning. They are going to lead you to your class or to your room of where you're going to register for courses. For us, for the College of Engineering, it's going to be in the Scott Bioengineering Building, room 101. It's our large auditorium. And then there will be a team of our orientation people there who will help you get registered for your classes. You will likely meet some of these folks the day before, but they're there to ensure that you get into the proper classes, what next steps may be. Maybe there's a class that you're still waiting on, and they will kind of communicate with you about like, okay, we got registered for these classes, but maybe, in so many weeks we can come back and see where you're at with these other courses. So it's super helpful because you do have folks there who are there to support you. There is the option to bring a laptop, but you're more than welcome to use our laptops that we already have situated for you. So we will have that covered. Don't need to worry about like flying with one if that's, something that you have on like your list to take to orientation. We will have laptops for you so that you can use them for registration. This is just an example of what an engineering schedule would look like. So the ones that are listed below, the little image that I use is just an example of a schedule in general. We are likely not going to have engineering students taking multiple music classes. So this is just an overview of like what a schedule could look like if you were registered for courses. The ones listed below, you will likely register for an engineering course, your introduction class, a science course. So kind of depending on the major that you're in will like indicate which science class you would take. So like chemistry, physics, computer science, or biology are the options. And AUCC, I talked about those earlier. So you would likely register for one of those classes. And then your seminar course, which is focused on student success, because being a student, it's hard. So we want to be able to give you the tools and ensure your success through different ways and connecting with different folks. So every student will receive a personalized scheduled that tailors to their requirements. So you may take other classes that cover the classes that you will register for. You will get ones that are more tailored to what your situation is right now. All right, and then for my parents and caregivers, you are more than welcome to also stay busy while your student is going through orientation and going through all their sessions. So there's a couple of different things that you can be doing that can help with understanding resources. So there are sessions offered by Office of Financial Aid if you have questions about financial aid. Housing and dining, that's a pretty common one just because you are moving to campus so soon. And a bunch of different resources who are giving presentations. Admissions does presentations, just kind of an abundance of information for you to take advantage of. And then we have our virtual orientation. So students must attend the full day. Please do not try and make plans on the side or during or whatever it may be. We want to make sure that you are really engaged with us and that you're, interacting with us and learning about all the things that we're telling you, because it's all critical to the start of your fall semester. So it's a very similar setup where you come in, you meet with your orientation leader, but again, it's all virtual, so you're online. You do an intro to academic advising. There's an optional academic interest session, so you could go and kind of see if there's other options for you when it comes to different majors. And then registration. But you have to attend the full thing to get to the registration piece. If you do not, there is a chance that you will not be able to register at the end, which is a bummer. We don't want that. But that's why we have to reemphasize that you have to go the full day. And then same deal, parents and caregivers, we love to keep you busy. So virtual orientation for parents and caregivers are also an option. There are live sessions that will take place from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time, just to emphasize that those times are different if you're in different time zones. And this will happen on the virtual orientation days. So if your student is registered for a specific day, just make sure that you communicate with them and say, hey, what day are you registered for? And then you should be able to access those live sessions. Transfer students, y'all are just a little unique. There's not too many dates, but we love our transfer students. We want to ensure that you're set up for success. It just takes some more time working with this population in general, just because you'll have taken a lot of classes, your timeline is a little different, and that is okay, because we still want you to come to CSU and to have this experience and to be with your cohort. You just have a different process. So you'll register for an on-campus orientation. There's a couple of dates listed here below. Complete your orientation modules. Everyone's got orientation modules to do, and then attend your on-campus orientation. So this is a 1-day deal. You just come, you meet with your either orientation team or your academic advisor, and they can get you registered for your classes. For my transfer students, I cannot emphasize enough, please send your transcripts. It does make a world of difference when those are in, and then we can see it all set up nice and pretty in your degree progress audit report and be able to tell you or show you which classes to register for. And then this is just like a very sample overview. I wouldn't get too drawn into it or dedicated to it, but a orientation schedule of what this might look like. All right, so we've done orientation, we've got all the things done, and now we're gonna get ready for fall, because fall sneaks up pretty fast, I will say. Summer flies by, and then we are in the fall semester, and we have all of these new students, and it is fantastic, but it's also a lot to take in. And so what are some ways to really start getting into good habits, productive habits, and ensuring that you are prepared for the fall? So connect with your resources. There is an abundance of different people on campus who are willing and able to help you in whatever situation that you're in. Maybe you start with the Engineering Success Center and they help you with, academic advising or scholarships or career planning, whatever it may be. You can always start in your college, or you can go to university and talk to other resources like Office of Financial Aid or housing. We just want you to feel comfortable with connecting with those resources, because they really are a support system for you. And we just want to ensure that students don't feel afraid to ask for help. Please ask for help. It is okay to seek help. We have a variety of different things that can help students, whether that's like academic, it can be personal, financial, whatever the case is, we have something for you, and it just takes asking for help or asking the question. Time management. This seems, a bit ironic, but, college is different. Undergrad is different. When you come in, it's really up to you if you want to go to classes, if you want to study, if you want to take those tests. There's a lot of authority that gets handed over to students, and that can be really overwhelming at times. And it's okay, because we want to give you the best tools and practices to manage all those things. And so oftentimes we see first year or incoming students struggle with time management because there's just an abundance of different information that's getting thrown at you from clubs, orgs, classes, new people. Like your living situation is different. There's just all these different things that are happening. And so we have actually an office called Tilt, which offers sessions on time management. So how to build a time management schedule, how to be effective with either completing like homework, leaving time for socializing, whatever it may be. They even have study strategies, just because some students have a lot of experience with studying and others may not have as much experience. And at CSU, you got to get comfortable with studying and finding your fit and everything with what works for you. And then even sessions on overcoming procrastination. I'm guilty of this. I should probably go back to the session again. But procrastinating becomes really the enemy for students. And so we give them even tools on that. So understanding the importance of balance, time, and priorities. Schoolwork is always a priority, study sessions, tutoring, socializing and involvement, and even working if you want to bring on a job at some point. We recommend an on-campus job just because you work with folks who understand that you're a student, and so that comes over anything else. All right, just a few more here. And then with every STEM degree, and especially in engineering, it is okay to fail forward. We want you to feel comfortable with that. You may get an exam and not receive the grade that you expected, and that is okay. It is okay to fail, but we want you to learn from a mistake and be able to move forward on that and correct it or find a solution for it, or again, seek help on it. So the whole kind of goal here is that as engineers, you will experience some form of failure, whether that's in undergrad or even in your career, and that's okay. But how do you create a system of being able to bounce back from that? How can you go through this whole experience in a growth mindset, and really develop those skills that help you create improvements rather than feeling like you have to stay in the position that you're in after a failure? All right. And then go to class. This sounds so simple, but when it's 8 a.m. and maybe you were up until who knows what hour studying or whatever it may be, it becomes pretty easy to just skip class because, again, no one's really requiring you to be there. And so we really want to emphasize that when you go to class, you are getting all the information that you need to really help you be successful in that course. There can be gaps of knowledge when students don't go to class, even if you have all the lectures and the books and whatever it may be. There's information that's being shared in class too. And your professors do notice who's coming and who isn't coming. So being able to establish that relationship is important. Talking to your professors are important and your teaching assistants, because they are going to help you really understand what information you need to know from this course, what takeaways you need, and how to be successful overall. And that all stems from attending class. All right. And then this is a quick little overview of FERPA. Once students become a registered student at CSU, so once they enroll and then they move on to campus, FERPA becomes a part of their protection. So this basically means that all of their information is only released under the discretion of the student. So if anyone outside of the student is requesting like transcripts, grades, any academic information, they need to have an agreement with that student to release any of those records. So CSU is responsible for protecting and keeping all those records. And so anyone outside of that who tries to access that, we are unable to relinquish any of it. That all comes down to the student giving that A-OK to do so. So please, if you have folks who are emailing your academic advisors, your professors, anyone like that, we have to send that back to the student and say, is this okay? Do you agree to us sharing any of this information? And then you have to sign some documents and some agreements that agree to all of this stuff. So just to let you know that FERPA becomes active once a student enrolls. All right. And then I just went over a ton of information. It was a lot. And it was so much. I do not expect you to completely remember every single thing that I said right now. But when in doubt, check your Ramstart. Now we have Ramstart at CSU, which is really great because it is basically a checklist for every single thing that you need done or that we recommend you complete before you start in the fall, which is super helpful. And then there is even information on what to do in your first year. So it's really helpful. You can see once you complete it, it gives you a nice big green check mark. And then if you still need to complete it, it's got a big red X. So it's very, very clear about what needs to happen or what is completed. All right, my friends, that is all that I have for you. We have some questions in the chat that we can go over, but I am going to move over to our Zoom. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. over here. Okay. So I guess we'll just kind of start going through some of the questions in the chat. Okay, I see one about if students have a laptop, should they bring it to orientation? You are welcome to bring it, but there will be laptops already set up for students to register. It's just less of a hassle for them to bring it in the morning with them. And it is a really early morning, I will say, when it comes to registration. And so sometimes students will forget it. So I would say no need to do so. We've got laptops for them, and it's not worth the hassle. I will also let folks unmute themselves if you would like to ask a question. A couple other questions. What kind of laptop is recommended for freshman engineering or first year engineers? There is really not a specific preference on when it comes to laptops. My other folks here, my other colleagues here, you're more than welcome to chime in. But from my understanding, Chromebooks are just not it. They just don't work well with our classes in general. But I've seen students who have Macs. I've seen students who have HPs. It just kind of depends on the programs. We also have a really great tech team who can help them. So our engineering tech services, they can help with like if there's any issues with a laptop, downloading a program, like running a new system, whatever it may be, they are there to help support students.
Yeah, I don't think I would add anything else other than that there is a virtual desktop that folks can use to access different types of software. I think this kind of gets at another question that was asked around, is there any guidance around what technology students will need or programs that they'll need to use? For the most part, CSU provides a lot of those things. I would recommend like the Microsoft Suite, which students have access to. And again, there is a virtual desktop that folks can use to access like engineering specific things or engineering specific pieces.
Another one in there says, will orientation and classes sign up be first come, first serve? Meaning, will classes be filled up if I do an orientation in late July versus doing an orientation in June?
Yeah, I can speak to that one as well. So you probably are going to have fewer options overall, unfortunately. When we're talking about our engineering classes, like our intro to engineering classes, not so much there. We know how many students are coming in. We're great at, making sure all students have a seat in that class. Chemistry, specifically Chem 112, which is the lab, it can fill up towards the end of the semester or end of the summer. And then the other thing to consider is all university core curriculum classes, which are open to everyone to sign up. Those can get full, although there are so many different all university core curriculum classes, students always can find something to fit in their schedule. So I would say students ultimately get what they need. Might they be taking an 8 a.m. class? Probably. And I've never heard of a student who's been able to make their way through CSU without taking at least one. So it's a good opportunity to practice, that skill. So yeah.
So another one in there says, what time does the Encourage in engineering math class start? So I'm thinking this is the session or the live sessions in person. Sorry.
Yeah, I answered. So the course will open June 10th, and once the Canvas course is open, the student can access it at any time. So after 9 a.m. on June 10th Mountain Time, they can go in. They could study for the next 5 days and do it all if they wanted. They could space it out over the 3 weeks. But the live office hours will be at 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. at 5 p.m. Mountain Time if they did want to get in there and get that live support. Hopefully offering 3 hours. 3 different time slots throughout the day will work with everyone's schedule. And then I'll just go to the next one that was about Encourage, if that's okay, Bella. So someone said, can you sign up for Encourage before taking the placement tool? I did respond like, please register. We do want to support you in any way we can. The helpful part of having a math placement tool placement would let us know what to focus on during Encourage. So if you placed out of algebra and trigonometry already, maybe when you come to the virtual session, you only study functions because you're already proficient in the other topics. So that's something good about having the placement. But if I can help the student place in any form, I would love to have them.
Ooh. And then there's clarification around if parents can join their students during orientation day. From my understanding, and Betty, jump in whatever, but there are certain parts where parents or caregivers will be present with their student during orientation, but specifically during registration, parents will not be present.
Yeah, that is correct. So day one, y'all will be in the room with us for about 30 minutes before transitioning to a different presentation. Day two is students only. There's also another question that I can answer around non-AP and non-IB high school classes placing someone into Math 160, and the answer is no. Even if you've taken calculus in high school, we are going to ask for you to take the math placement tool in order to place into Math 160. So the only time a class might get you out of that math placement tool is if it's for concurrent or dual enrollment with a college.
I think to also add, if you do take an AP class, but you didn't take the AP exam, that also does not count for credit.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Yeah, that's a good point. And then, oh, sorry, I'm just kind of also
you're good.
looking at another question that's kind of related around if credit is achieved for an AP test in high school, will they be able to test, like, is it possible to test higher than Math 160? And the answer is yes, depending on the AP or IB test that you took. Calculus BC, if you took that course and you score, I think it's higher than a 3, possibly you could receive credit for Math 160, which is Calculus 1, and Math 161, which is Calculus 2. So the best thing to do if you have a question about your specific situation around what math class am I going to be in or what do I need is to email my orientation team at engr-orientation@colosstate.edu. Another thing to think about around understanding transfer credits and things like that is that my team starts to do individual outreach to folks 2 weeks before their orientation date. So for incoming first-year students, make sure that, you're checking your Colorado State email because we will be reaching out to you to remind you to submit certain things, and then you can start a dialogue with us back and forth around like what exactly is needed for me. So we're happy to talk with that. Or if you have questions, just feel free to reach out right away. That's also totally fine.
And I see one about being able to use facilities on campus during orientation. That I don't know. I'm not actually sure if that's possible.
Is it possible? I don't know. Is there time? I guess is one of the questions is your schedule is going to be pretty busy. It's going to be pretty packed. So is there going to be time? I guess if you really made it a priority, you could go. I don't think that you will be able to access it. That membership is paid through your student fees. And so as someone who hasn't yet registered, you wouldn't have paid that fee. So they might give you like a day pass or something. That's totally up to them. But I would say you're probably not gonna have time to do that. So maybe take a rest day.
Yeah, orientation is really it's pretty exhausting. I'm not gonna lie. You're doing a lot. You're doing a lot of walking, so you're really active on campus. So yeah, it's a lot, but it'll be here in the fall when you come. You'll be able to access it whenever you like.
I'm sure that they would also give you a tour of the facility if you're just wanting to kind of check it out and see what it looks like. That they would probably do. But just to use it, I would say probably no.
And there's one on as an international student, do I register for courses and classes in my first orientation virtual session in June? with my
Mhm.
academic advisor. So if you're doing a virtual orientation, it would all be happening on that day.
Mhm. Yeah, and that international orientation session, you'll be meeting with your academic advisor in the morning, and that's when you'll register for classes. So for that, there is no day two. I can also address this next one around is there any difference in the registration process for engineering students who are participating in honors? And the answer is yes. There are a couple of different things that our honor students will do. So if you're an honor student, you will register on day two with your honors advisor. So you'll be going to a different location to register. So you'll actually get to meet your honors advisor on that day too. There's also a seminar that honor students take that is like a seminar, and it also counts for Composition 150. So we won't recommend that you take Composition 150, which is like a composition course. We also generally won't recommend any other all university core curriculum classes for you as an honor student because your participation in honors satisfies those all university core curriculum classes. So it's extra important if you're in the honors program to make sure that you've done the math placement tool or that you've submitted those transcripts to us, because otherwise we are not actually able to sign you up for a math class at all, if that makes sense. Like we need something to use. So definitely make sure that you're on top of that.
You'll also have an honors advisor who will help you with like understanding honors classes. So that will be separate than your academic or major advisor too.
Mhm.
Um, I got one directly and it's just about one AP Chem or just I think AP classes in general. If you take AP classes in high school, does it give you the opportunity to not take this class anymore in college? You will need to take the AP exam, receive the score that is required to receive credit at CSU. I will send all that information in our follow-up email after this. And you can check if that score is equivalent to what is required for the credit. This one's about day two. What happens after you register?
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, on day two, that is kind of the last piece of orientation. Sometimes it can take until noon, depending on like sometimes students really like to take their time and weigh all of their different options, and that's totally fine. Afternoon, I always recommend that students, stop by the Student Disability Center if they need to, or get their RAM card, or any other like stop by the bookstore. But in terms of formal programming, it does end at noon. Mhm. And I'm going to put the orientation email in the chat because people are asking for that.
This is a good one, but also I don't know if there's folks who can answer to this who are here. But when will students know if they get into the engineering dorm? So the engineering residential learning community.
Mhm. Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit as well. So folks are being admitted on a rolling basis. So if your student applied, or if you or your student applied for the engineering residential learning community, you should hear back within 1 to 2 weeks. So those applications are being actively reviewed. If you haven't heard back, there is another email address that we can maybe drop in the chat, that you can reach out to ask for an update on your application. That being said, the next step that's really important for folks to keep in mind is that room selection doesn't happen until like June 15th, June 17th. And at that time, that's when you or your student will be able to go in and actually sign up for a room in Academic Village Engineering, which is where the engineering residential learning community happens. So if you're asking about like a room selection piece, that won't happen yet. Your student has to do that. So for other questions, like we can drop that email in the chat, but I hope that kind of covered what you were asking for in terms of information.
I see one on when orientation is. So orientation is a series of dates that occur throughout June and July. The first set of orientation or in-person orientation happened actually today, so it kicked off today. But there's a variety of different dates that you can choose from. I will send the information on where to see these dates and how to register for an orientation. Ultimately, when it comes down to getting registered for a date, whether that's in person or online, if they are available, is through our orientation transition programs. And I will send, again, all of that via email through a follow-up. And then I mentioned this earlier about advisors. So at CSU, every student is assigned an academic advisor for their primary major and for really any other major that they are, I guess, registered in or currently enrolled in. And so you will have an academic advisor for, let's say, mechanical engineering. You will have an academic advisor for that degree. If you are specifically in the dual degree program, so if you're in biomedical, you will actually just have one engineering advisor. You will not have one for biomedical engineering and one for your partnering major. That one's a little unique. But let's say you are in the honors program, you will have an honors advisor. If you are on a pre-health track, you have any interest in pre-health, there's also pre-health advising that you can get involved in or seek assistance in. And then if you're in any outside major, so let's say you are an electrical engineering student and a double majoring in computer science or minoring in computer science, you will have an academic advisor for that program as well. So it can be a lot, but it's all listed out on your RAM web. So just in case you get confused on who to contact. I see Macarena has answered some questions in here too. And then this one, I'm not sure. There's a question about June 24th and 25th orientation and why there are asterisks next to it.
It could be that Spanish language translation is available during that session. That's what I would guess. Yeah, that's what I would guess.
All right. And then just for the sake of time, my friends, we are going to wrap up. And if you have any further questions, Betty has put in the chat the engineering orientation email. And then Macarena also shared the email to ask questions about math. I will follow up with an email regarding what we went over today, who to contact and how to contact them. Hopefully I'll have the link to the recorded version of this video. It just takes a little bit for our team to get it uploaded to YouTube and everything. So my hope is it gets there fast. But at the very least, I will send you all of the links and where to go and who to contact on, XYZ reasons. But I appreciate y'all taking the time to come and talk with us and learn with us about orientation. We are so excited for y'all to be here on campus. We're super pumped to see this new cohort come in. I've gotten to work with some of you and I've gotten to interact with you, and I can't say enough that I'm just super excited to see y'all here. I think y'all are a phenomenal group of students. So let us know if you have any questions. Reach out. Again, asking for help is totally okay. So feel free to connect with us if you have anything else you want to talk about. But for now, you're more than welcome to log off, and we will see you in the fall or sooner.